Welcome back to the Anti-Meta Meta Club. This week, we are back at the lovely Spa, and we have Group 3 cars. With the recent change in the BOP, it was really interesting to see which cars would be OP and which ones would not quite be up to snuff, and no surprise, the Toyota is OP. On top of that, in celebration of the announcement of the Gran Turismo movie, which is based on GT Academy, I'm wearing my GT Academy shirt. I competed in 2014 where they flew me to New York, and I got to do some live races, got to do some autocross, and I even won a race. Anyways, on to the video. I'm happy to report that the McLaren 650S is our anti-meta car of the week. It has enough straight line speed to both pass and defend against the Supra and the GTR. On top of that, it handles incredibly well, and I really like using it because I get to use my official Samantha Tan Racing livery. I'd say acceleration is probably its weakness, but it really makes up for that with its handling capabilities in the second sector. As expected, most of the spots are taken up by the Supra. The GTR is also prominently featured on the leaderboard. I was able to get the 650S down to 24th place. That was the second fastest 650S at the time, but since then, Cooper has gotten it into the 15s. We had Spa just a couple weeks ago and not much has changed. Looking for the 100 meter board on the left, as soon as we get all the way past it, that's when we're going to brake. When you're all the way past the 50 meter board, that's when you're going to start turning in. You want to get to first gear quickly and try to hit a late apex right on the curb right there. As you get on the throttle, you want to get on the throttle aggressively, but not so much that you slide the rear tires. However, if you slide them just a little bit without getting a lot of angle in a slide, it's probably going to be faster than if you're not quick enough on the throttle. Hugging the wall on the right, our goal is to look for the 50 meter board on the left right here. Our goal is to get our right tires all the way on this inside curb right here. Follow the black lines that you can see and try to apex really late on this right-hander. Using too much curb can make you bounce off, so make sure you're continually steering into it. We want to go straight over this curb without driving all the way over and past it. Get your steering done early so you can reduce the amount that you're actually steering so you don't have a lot of drag from the tires on the straight. Shift at the very top of 161 miles an hour. You want to get as much out of it as you can. When you see the meter board, start looking for the beginning of this curb here on the left. You want to be fully on the brakes right before you get to it. When you're fully past the 50 meter board, start turning in and get as close to these bollards as you possibly can. Aim for the second one. You'll lose a lot of time if you end up sliding to the right, so make sure you keep balanced throttle, tap the brake if necessary, and get yourself all the way to the left as soon as you can. Turn in before you lift off and only lift off just enough so you can hit the apex. Upshifting to third can help tuck the nose in a little bit too, and you can save yourself a full shift if you get to third before you get on the throttle. Just like the last big braking zone, our braking point for this corner is the curb again. Brake hard and turn in using that magic ABS that I always talk about. Start trail braking once you get down to second gear. Drop it to first to rotate, and then off the brakes, back up to second and balance it out with the throttle. You don't want to get on the throttle too early, but you do want to get on it early enough that it forces you all the way to the outside of the exit. Instead of straightening the car out on the right, I treat it like one big corner from here. Once I'm pointed at the double posts right here, I start turning all the way for the next corner. I brake after that only enough to tuck the nose in once again and downshift to second. Shifting back to third ensures that we don't understeer off the track, as well as saves us a shift before the next corner. There's a digital flag board you can use as a braking point during the race, but it's not there during TT. Instead, when you get to the 50 meter board, wait till you get all the way past it and a half car length more, then get on the brakes. Downshift to third, turn in and try to make sure you hit this apex here. Turn in all the way past the apex, upshift and get on the throttle, and after that you can start releasing the steering so you're not scrubbing the front tires too much. From there, continue adjusting your steering so you hit the second apex and then track all the way out. For the next corner, you want to be fully on the brakes by the time you're going underneath the SPA sign above. Make sure you're using engine braking as you downshift all the way to second before you start to trail brake in. I've been trying just to use the yellow and the red part of the curb because the high part can really upset the balance of the car, but feel free to try it out. Get to the middle of the track before you turn in, lift, and stab the brakes just a little bit so you can get the nose tucked in, and then as soon as you're sure about your exit, get on that throttle all the way. So our next corner is pretty tricky. We want to make sure that we're braking before the curb. We're going to get to second as fast as we can and immediately trail brake. Use as much of this curb as you can without hitting the bollard and get on the throttle as early as possible. This is essentially going to connect to that long straight. Stay away from the green AstroTurf on the outside, and when you turn in, you do not need to lift off the throttle. Don't touch the bollard on the inside, it will slow you down if it doesn't just spin you right away. And when you go on the exit, don't touch the green. The green will immediately suck you off the track. Feel free to laugh at that one. That's a freebie. Once again, as with all really high-speed sections of any track, you want to minimize the steering as much as you can. You don't need to go wide for this first little kink here, but to set up for the big kink, you've got to go really wide. Again, no need to lift, but make sure you don't hit that curb too early and don't go too far on the outside of the exit. Looking for the 150 meter board on the left, we're going to brake when we get all the way past it. Continue guiding your car all the way to the outside, get to second gear, down to first, and turn in very early. Keep pressure on the brakes until you know that you've hit enough of this curb to set up carefully for the next corner. Try to avoid the giant sausage on the inside of that curb and get on that throttle gently because you can spin those tires and slide out. Use that exit curbing as long as you've balanced your car out and you're not spinning the tires. That's our lap. Alright, here we are full speed. Once we get past that 100 meter board, that's when we're going to brake, get all the way down to first gear, late apex, and then be brave on that throttle without fully drifting on the exit. As we set up all the way on the right, we want to make sure that we are not going to lift off the throttle whatsoever. The tire marks you can see on the ground are a really good indicator of the line you want to take. Abuse as much of that curb as you possibly can. Try not to go too high on the second one, and for the third one, just go straight over it. You want to use as much of fifth gear as you possibly can. In miles per hour, it's 161. You can barely get up to 162, but make sure you shift before then. We're going to be fully on the brakes right before the curb and turn in right after the 50 meter board. Carry as much speed as you possibly can while making sure you get all the way to the outside on the left here so you can get as much momentum and a good enough exit going to this corner. Make full use of the Gran Turismo ABS and turn in all the way through second gear. Shifting back to second early enough, make sure you don't lose too much momentum and treat these two corners as a connected S. You can use a lot of this curb, but you want to try to keep two tires on the asphalt. On the double apex left-hander, we want to make sure we're getting into fourth gear and on the throttle as early as we can. Make sure you're guiding your car through both of those apexes. You don't want to steer too much and understeer, but you don't want to steer too little and go off the track. Exiting this right-hander, we just want to go to the middle of the track and not really sacrifice too much because there's not much of an exit after this left-hander. This right-hander is surprisingly tricky, and I think it's because it's downhill. But remember, you're not going to let off the throttle again after you get on it right there until you're in the next braking zone. I think I said this last week, but you really want to focus on making sure that you get on the throttle as early as possible. You want to maximize the amount of time you're on wide open throttle. That means getting on the throttle as early as possible, of course, but it also means braking as late as you possibly can. Using as much of the road as you can to be at full throttle allows you to be going faster for a much longer time, obviously. This is another portion of the track where you can really abuse the curb. You can see how much I did, and you can actually use a little bit more than that even. You can use this sausage curb on that left if you're really comfortable and confident enough with your throttle control. Usually I'd show you one really good race that I had, but I struggled to have even a single good race, so instead I'm going to show you some highlights and some things you can do with this car. Leading up to the bus stop, this car can brake incredibly late and keep a lot of momentum through the corner, so you can pull off an outside pass going into it just like this. It can be really easy to get your entire car in front of another car for that first part, and then when you're all the way in front, you can track out and use all of it for a really good exit. If you find yourself behind a Supra before turn 1, you're actually going to be in the best possible position. I thought this was a really hilarious demonstration of how incredibly overpowered the Supra is. I very clearly got a better exit. I was on the throttle a lot earlier than he was, but it didn't really matter just because Supra things. If you find yourself in a game of chicken like this, just go ahead and lift. Make sure you stay close enough that you still have a lot of slipstream and you're getting a run up the hill, but you can definitely make it work a lot easier if you're behind them leading to this straight. Most people will obviously defend on the inside. That is a better position, but the McLaren is good enough to brake a little bit late and carry a lot of speed going into this right-hander. I gave him space just in case, but it ended up not being necessary, and I was able just to drive away with the McLaren's superior handling. This pass was actually a lot like the last one, except I was much further back, so I didn't get any kind of overlap when it came to getting next to him going into this corner. I also suspect the other guy wasn't quite shifting at the right time. I was able to brake a lot later than him, but he modulated his brakes and stayed right next to me throughout all of these corners. Now these are the kinds of things that happen. He almost pushed me off track here, but at the last second he gave me just enough to stay on track and not go in the grass. I wasn't deterred yet though, because I knew the McLaren was really good on the brakes and I was really confident in how much speed I can carry through the outside of this corner. Since he gave me space on the last exit, I thought he would do the same here, and he did. I wasn't able to get past him until the very next corner. This next pass is actually a really good example of why you want to give people a lot of space when it comes to going up a Rouge and Radeon. I say this every time, but please forgive my ugly American pronunciation of the word. I'd also like to apologize to TG for using him as an example. I love you. So with this amount of space, even if they had made it cleanly through that corner, I still would have probably had a run, but since both of them messed up, I was able to go ahead and slip right between them. Kudos to both of these guys for giving me the space to do this. If I didn't know and trust TG, I wouldn't have moved over to the left at all, but I moved in front of him because I knew that he was going to brake in time and he wouldn't hit me. But yeah, that one just felt good. And for the final clip, I want to show you this little battle I had with a competent GTR driver. I wasn't able to make a move on that long straight, and I wasn't actually able to make a move for a very long time. A GTR in the hands of someone who really knows what they're doing is very, very formidable. The GTR doesn't really have the amazing power that the Supra has. It has a lot of power for the class, but it doesn't have that incredible straight line speed that the Supra does. It does, however, have incredible grip and really good handling capabilities. So far, I haven't even been able to place myself in a position where it seems like I could even go for a pass yet, so I was just trying to make sure I stayed really close, so if I could get a better exit at any time, then I'd be able to get a run to the next corner, which is exactly what happened here. I didn't have any overlap, but I was really confident in my brakes, and being on the outside, if I were to miss my brakes, it wouldn't really matter that much. I used a little bit too much throttle, oversteered just a little bit, but we were able to stay really clean with each other going through there. I still wasn't able to break loose, and they went for an inside move here, but they gave me space, so really big shout outs to that driver. By far my favorite battle this entire week. I'm going to leave you with Sam's view of that whole thing, because he was right behind us and he got to see all of it unfold in real time. But with that, I wanted to ask you how you feel about this new format. In general, I like to get an entire race down, one really good race to really showcase what the anti-meta car can do, but I did over 20 races the past couple of days, and I couldn't get a single good race that wasn't ruined by some kind of shenanigans towards the end. Let me know in the comments. This should definitely make the videos a lot shorter and possibly easier to digest. Thank you for once again joining me on my quest to defeat the meta car. If you like what you saw, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave me any questions that you have below in the comments, and I'll be back next week.